Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237. Come at you with another 1920s silent horror film. And this time I am doing the cover film, 1925's Phantom of the Opera, starring Lon Chaney Sr. And this is the first American silent film that I'll be reviewing, because the last two, Nosferatu and Dr. Caligari, were German. A big difference is, the German films were more supernatural and monsters. These ones were more human deformities and outcasts, usually taken from classic literature. And 2 years before this, we got The Hunchback of Notre Dame, also with Chaney Sr. But this is like the first real true horror film of the American bunch, I guess. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this film. It is very different than Nosferatu and Caligari. Not just in sense of who the monster is and what kind of story it is, but even style. Because one, the sets in this film was holy fucking wow. Huge, lavish sets that looks just like the Paris Opera House, but is a built set. They didn't film that in Paris. That is a set that they built with painstaking accuracy. And also the makeup that Chaney Sr., it's movies like this that gave him the reputation of the man of 1,000 faces, because of his ability to change his appearance with self-applied makeup. And because of Lon Chaney, we have the special effects that we have today, all throughout. Jack Pierce in the 30s with the Frankenstein films, or Tom Savini in the 70s and 80s, Greg Nicotero in the 80s to now. I mean, it all comes from Chaney Sr. And I guess in order to get that skeletal look, he even took piano wire to tie his nose back. Very uncomfortable. It also stars Mary Philbin as Christine, the damsel of the film. And I guess this isn't the oldest Phantom of the Opera film. There was one from 1916 that, unfortunately, like many films of that time, have been lost forever. In fact, even the 1925 complete original version of this, a lot of it has been lost. So the two main versions, there's the 1925 print, which is the found bits of film that's been reconstructed, which is why some parts of this it does kind of feel like we've missed some parts, or it feels out of place, but not too drastic, and it doesn't really take you out of the film. There's also the 1929 Eastman print, which was sort of when the talkies started becoming a thing, and they dubbed some of the voices. Lon Chaney was not involved because of his contract with MGM. He could not lend his voice to Universal. Those are the two most popular ones. I would recommend the original 25 silent print over the dubbed 29 print, just because the whole thing about silent films is not so much remakes, because there's been a remake of Nosferatu and Dr. Caligari, even this, but not so much remakes, because they do their own thing. But if you're going to take a silent film and put, sound to it, it really takes it away, because silent horror excuse me, silent films are very much a visual art form, and they're very moody. Like they set and keep you in a certain kind of mood that if you put voices over it, it's going to take you out of it. And that's another thing that made Lon Chaney so essential to silent films, was because both of his parents were deaf. So growing up, he learned and mastered communication through body language and movement, which made him the man for silent films. And both coincidentally, sadly, and ironically, he passed away in 1930 when sound film really began. So he was very limited. You know, he was he was God's gift to silent films, and he never got to see the sound film. Strange but sad. The story of Phantom of the Opera, to the best of my understanding, because that is one story I haven't read. I read Frankenstein as a kid. I read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as a kid. I don't remember if I read Dracula or not. I wanted to. I don't think I ever did. But I did read Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Phantom of the Opera I never read. But to the best of my understanding, it's quite faithful. More faithful than, say, other monster films of that time or even later. Except for the ending. The ending, I thought, the original ending, which I would have loved to see. I guess they did film it, but the audience's reaction was very poor, so the studio wanted to change it. And the ending we have is the kind of ending a lot of people talk about. The ending, well, people who like silent films, because again, I have friends, I know people that won't even watch a movie with people they know because it's black and white, which is kind of pathetic. So they definitely won't watch a silent film, but they're great movies. So, almost 8 minutes in, I haven't even got into the story, but it's the Paris Opera House. There's like this legend of this ghost of the opera house, the Phantom of the Opera House, that makes things happen, can demand things, and he is in love with this one singer named Christine, played by Mary Feldman. And he sends these letters saying, like, I demand your prima donna singer to fall ill or whatever, so Christine can sing the final piece. And for a while, it goes accordingly. One time it doesn't, and he threatens that there will be dire consequences when Christine does not perform the piece, but the prima donna does. He makes it so that a grand chandelier falls from the ceiling and kills many people. And it's well done, I will say. It is well done, and the set pieces, again, are fucking magnificent. You take, like, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which looks like stage pieces that they hand-painted to look trippy and weird and surreal, to, like, monstrous, lavish, beautiful opera house set pieces that they built. I mean, that alone is highly respectable. The Phantom can move within the walls and everywhere amongst the opera house. He talks to Christina as, he's the Phantom voice, and he kind of helps teach her how to sing. And this is why it kind of feels out of place and some things are missing, because she starts calling him, master, really obeying him. She does have a fiance named Raoul, who he tells her, you must never see him again, and she listens. After the chandelier massacre, essentially, he lures Christine through, I think it's like a mirror or a bookcase, I think it's a mirror, down these dark, like a dungeony corridors, which he says like 5 cellars down to his lair. And she's kind of held prisoner, and he's wearing the mask in this film isn't the mask that we would go on to associate with the character, where it's like an eyepiece that's like part of the mouth. It's just sort of like this white eyepiece with sort of like a veil. And he confesses his love for her, and she faints, and he brings her into this extravagant bedroom, puts her to bed. And I really like this piece of film because it's very it's very crackly and grainy. It almost looks like the film is pulsating because it gets like darker and lighter in some spots. I love that look. How even like Chainsaw Massacre or Evil Dead has like those crackles and grains and pops in the film, which I love, and it looks great in black and white. When she awakens, he tells her, you can come and go as you please, but you must never look underneath my mask. He goes to play his organ, and that's when you get the famous scene where she sneaks up behind him, lifts it up, and you just get that look. And it is still a very haunting, creepy, freaky scene, because then he like goes after her, and the camera angles where he's like imposing and he's like looking down at her, and well done. Says, you can go out to your world one more time, but you will come back to me and you will never see your fiance again. Then we get this very wonderfully done color sequence, which is the Dance of the Red Death, sort of inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death. It's like this mask banquet, and the Red Death is the Phantom. And it's color, but they didn't have color film back then, so when they restored this, or even in the original release, they hand-painted every frame. Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. And pretty much from there on, Christine talks to Raoul about escaping, and that's when the Phantom gets pissed. And you have the whole climax with him and Christine in his lair, and his traps for Raoul and the secret policeman, Lado. The angry mob comes down, and, great sequences. Again, the great makeup. It's a lot of the body language is kind of like Bela Lugosi, a lot of with the hands and the arms, but what he does with his face is very incredible. How he acts through the makeup. Then again, the ending. The original ending is Raoul gets Christine, they escape together, and he dies of a broken heart at his organ. That's what's in the original novel. Here, the Phantom, seeing the angry mob, takes Christine, tries to flee away in a carriage. It wrecks, and the mob chases him down to the Cian, whatever that body of water is. And he stops them, like he has like a thing in his hand, but then he just shows he has nothing. He laughs at the sky, and then they all just crowd around him, beat him, throw him in the river. I mean, it's performed well by Chaney, but I think where he is supposed to be a tragic monster, a tragic gothic figure, The dying of a broken heart ending, I think, would have fit the film much more. But can't have everything. But I thought this was a great silent film. It is very different from Caligari and Nosferatu. German expression. We get to see what the German expression horror films were like, and then what the American sort of studio films were like. But again, a great performance by Chaney. Wonderful makeup. I mean, next to Nosferatu, this was probably the first real icon of horror, character-wise. I mean, yeah, before that, Chaney played Quasimodo, but that's not really a horror story, even though it's considered as horror elements, which is part of this set as well. And Nosferatu is the unofficial adaptation of Dracula, so this is one of the oldest icons of horror. I would say I still like Nosferatu more and Caligari more, but I definitely enjoyed and respect this film for what it did. Great mood, great atmosphere, great music, great performances, especially by Chaney, great makeup, great sets. I mean, it was beautiful when it had to be. It was sort of tragic when it had to be. Definitely scary when it had to be. I mean, between Caligari, Nosferatu, and this alone, way scarier than anything that's come out in the last 15 years. And these movies are almost 100 years old. Phantom of the Opera, fucking classic. It's great. And it's part of the public domain, so you can watch it on YouTube. Highly recommend it. Again, the 25 silent print, not the 29 Eastman print. Another great classic horror film from the 20s. Thank you for watching.